Howdy, and welcome back to my channel. I'm building out an expedition camper, a DIY expedition camper. And this is what it looked like when it all started out, just a bare truck chassis and then bare composite walls and then all glued up into a camper box. And of course, now we're moving on to one of our final little holes to drill into this big camper box, and that is to install a Tern Overland Cargo Door into these thick 3-inch rear walls. And I'll tell you why I'm installing this door and how come I installed it also at a 90-degree angle to how it was intended to be installed, and also how I trimmed out the interior, because that was really the most challenging part since it did not come with any interior trim ring. So we'll take a look at that in this video and dive into it. Thanks again for joining. And of course, if you take a little step back in just one video ago, you remember how we do these doors. You cut a big hole that matches up to the door exactly, and then you put some glue around it and you literally just press it into place. And that adhesive sealant not just seals it up from all the weather, air, and moisture and everything else getting in, but completely holds it in place, and that's it. And it takes literally seconds for this adhesive sealant to do its work and hold even a big heavy door like this one right here, this entry door from Motorcraft Adventure Developments that I installed. And go ahead and go back to my last video to watch that, and holds it in place. But now we're going to do this little door, this little Tern Overland door. We're going to do it the same way, but we got to trim out that interior and trim it out really nicely. So let's get into that. Now, if you remember back to my other cuts for the windows and the doors and the skylights, I always started with basically a round hole using a hole saw and cut those corners out, and then go ahead and cut between those hole saw drilled out holes with a circular saw with a special blade made for this composite panels or fiberglass, and cut straight lines between those, and that allowed me to get really straight lines between the cuts and the holes in the middle. In this case, I just went right straight to a jigsaw. It was a small enough cut, it's in a pretty compact space. I felt like that was just a little bit easier way, and just simply use the jigsaw to go through it. One of the challenges, this is a 3¼ inch thick composite wall panel, so about 80 millimeters in thickness, and so that jigsaw blade has to be that long, and also of course made for this as well. It really helps to have these suction cups from working on these composite panels in so many different reasons, but here just in this case as an example, even though that jigsaw blade has a certain thickness, still takes some effort to pull it out even with that suction cup, and then go ahead and test fit it in and just make sure that it goes in exactly, and if it does, great, and as in this case it did. And then it's just a matter of go ahead and cleaning everything up all the way around, taking off that masking tape that was there to not just mark out the hole but also protect the wall panel from any scratches and so forth, and then go ahead and basically get everything all cleaned up and literally just glue in this panel. And you'll notice here these green tape stripes on that lower rear wall panel and the blue ones above that. Those are actually marking lines for where I have steel and the fiberglass tube channel that's inside those walls to create a structural mount on the outside of these wall panels. And there are 4 of them in the lower wall panel and 2 of them on the upper wall panel, and those 2 on the lower wall panel just line with the outside of where this door is going to go. Partly why I mounted it vertically instead of horizontally. But you can see how I'm going to trim this out a little bit on the inside here. Very similar to I trimmed out both the pass-through door and also the garage doors that I custom built from just raw materials. So I went ahead and got to work with some leftover pieces of fiberglass U-channel and angles that I had and cut those down. You know, I really like working with this structural fiberglass pieces here, and the reason why is because both is it incredibly strong, but also it's of course not going to transfer any heat or cold thermally between the inside and outside. It's also not going to rust. It's made for outdoor use, and so it is weather resistant and tight. It glues up extremely well. I'm basically gluing fiberglass to fiberglass, and so it's a really nice compatible material. Works really well with this polyurethane adhesive sealant. And so after cutting these up into all the different pieces and lengths and so forth and getting some nice mitered corners, it then's a matter just to test fitting all those into the space to round out the interior of this Tern Overland door and the opening that it has in, because it really, the trim ring on that door is only about, oh gosh, about 1 inch at the most thick, and it's not really quite even a trim ring. You can see that aluminum trim ring around the Tern Overland door frame on the inside here, and how much it recesses into this cutout for the door. So I went ahead and installed some expanding foam into the crevices there to make sure I have good seal and sealant after this was already glued in, and then put my fiberglass L channel over those and glued those in, make sure of course they all got level, and of course 90-degree miter corners up to each other, so always nice and clean and tight. And then after of course I got them all sealed up and put on. This is what it looks like inside and outside. Yeah, it turned out really good. I'm really excited about it. This looks great. And basically what I have is that fiberglass L channel, or cut from a U channel. They had some leftovers all the way down to that aluminum frame to the inside. It's sealed up around the inside of that. Sealed up, of course, in those corners. I went ahead and drew it also where I had the ventilation system that's going to be mounted on this rear wall, and started gluing up my mounts for that. As well as you can see some of the cutouts in the corners where that ductwork is going to be coming into this gear garage area. And while I have this adhesive sealant tube open, I always try to do my next set of anything that needs to be glued on, which is what I'm doing that here. And I'll go over that ventilation system in a new video coming up soon. That's going to be very different than any other ventilation system I've seen out there, and I think it's going to work much, much better. And so I went ahead and clamped these in, used up that adhesive sealant, and let me show a little more. And this is what that frame looks like after just a rough coat of paint on it. I will finish up with a final coat of paint, and also a little custom mount here that does have some adjustability to both adjust for in and out position. But the Tern door is a really nice mechanism on its latch that goes ahead and allows it to give it a good clamp down that compresses the seals around it, and that works very nicely. You can see it here from the outside as well. After this door is already now glued in and sealed in, it holds very tightly, it seals in very nicely, and it does have seals all the way around. I'm not worried about it leaking at all, even though it's installed in the 90 degrees to the orientation was intended, because it is underneath my overlap here, my canopy of my step departure angle in the upper portion of that. So it's got almost a 2-foot overhang over it to protect it from any weather or anything coming in. And this is really just an emergency access door into the garage, and also for putting some longer parts and stuff in there and having them able to stick out the back, essentially going through the garage door. While I have this adhesive tube sealant open, I always try to use them up. They're about $20, $30 a tube. So I want to make sure I use them all up, and I go back around and make sure I've got everything sealed up well, everything around. I create a little list every time I open one of these, so that way I can make sure I use up as much as I can everywhere I have some, so that I'm not wasting any of this. And so after getting everything all sealed up and then letting it dry and cure, coming back over once again with any remnant adhesive sealant I have, getting it all nice and sealed up once again, make sure everything's got a nice smooth edge. This is what she finally looks like. Yeah, and this also is showing not just what the Tern Overland door looks like, and this of course is installed in reverse orientation with the hinge on the top instead of on the sides. But you can also see these mounts on the back wall here that I have. I'm going to go over that in a future video, as well as also the ventilation ports for my ventilation system, and also some of the ventilation system as is being installed, and the linear actuators that are going to open and close my custom garage doors. So all that's coming up in some future videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to you subscribing, sharing with others, and also sharing more with you. My upcoming videos coming soon.